Hey, welcome Fargo. Welcome to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. We've got a great show coming up. I'm waiting for my guests to arrive, but in the meantime, we're going to talk about some current events that I think we need to speak on. Um, uh, you guys may not know this, but today is Davies Day over at the high school, and we have a bunch of events going on over there. It's basically a student recognition day, and we recognize academic achievements as well as athletic achievements. We have an art show. It's one of those things that, I've only been at Davies for 5 months, and I can tell you that it's been an outstanding experience for me. I love working with the kids, meeting with teachers and administration, and just being involved in the process of education. I think the single biggest thing is watching how the students progress. And so when you start anything, you start off and you're just trying to figure it out, what's going on. You get the lay of the land, so to speak. But over the past few months, I've noticed some amazing things happening as I get to know the students. And at the top of the list to me is how much these kids are involved in the process of their education. Okay? And we hear all the things about what's bad about education, but today we're going to have a show. Hopefully, when the ladies arrive, we're going to talk about what their high school experience was, as well as what's to come and some of their creative writing. They are two young ladies that are part of the student publication called the Eagles. But until this time, as they show up, we're going to kick this show off with. As much as I said this month, I really don't want to be involved in the political landscape and talk too much about it, but I want to get some feedback on one issue in particular, and that is, what do people think? What do you think out there, listeners, of the fact that we just imported people from South Africa? And they've been labeled refugees or victims of terrorism. However you want to label it, these people arrived in the country. And what I find interesting about it is with all the immigration reform that we have and everything that was announced that was going to happen, this came to the forefront so quickly. And with, I don't remember there being a push to get Ukrainians who are in a war-torn country that are being persecuted. I didn't see any push to get those citizens safe asylum here. The same thing with the Palestinian refugees. I didn't see any safe haven for them being offered up by this administration. And if somebody could tell me what makes these South Africans so significant that we had to have emergency asylum and fly these people to the United States for their safety. Now, I have my own opinion on it, and I'm sure some people will disagree with me, but, through the whole thing, through this whole immigration reform, the one thing is that's been a battle cry is, hey, listen, you can come to the country, but let's do it the right way. Let's not leapfrog over other people who've been waiting in line. You have to come and you have to wait your turn. You have to do it how it should be done. It would appear that with this administration, that's not the case. So it looks to me like we're picking and choosing who we allow to come in the country, and we're basically saying, hey, we're going to take these people. Now, the funny thing is, if you look at the history of South Africa, these people have basically been the ruling class. And with Nelson Mandela being freed and later becoming the president of South Africa, the people that used to be in power came under fire. And so, to me, I have my own opinion, and it centers around colonization. And as you guys know, most of the countries in Africa are colonized, meaning that France, England, other countries, Belgium, they went into these African countries, and basically what they've been doing is stripping them of their natural resources, sometimes enslaving the people that are there, or creating an environment in which the people that actually live in that country aren't able to prosper. That's a rudimentary explanation of colonization, but it is colonizing nonetheless. So, in that vein, I'm looking at a number of things happening on the continent of Africa where citizens of Africa are starting to take back their country. And the interesting thing about that is some of these citizens or some of these leaders are being labeled as terrorists. And so I want to get you guys' perspective on this because, it's been bantied about that Africa is the next great economic empire, and not necessarily the country, but various countries in Africa are now starting to see the economic power that they do have. Last week I mentioned Burkina Faso and Captain Traore. He is the leader of Burkina Faso, and they have done away with French rule and French colonization to the point where they are trying to determine what becomes of their country. And so I want to get you guys' opinions on it because our government has a very strong opinion on it. And the opinion is that this gentleman is a terrorist. He's not good for the country. And we, as well as other nations, have gone in and tried to destabilize or eliminate this gentleman. In addition to that, there are other countries. I believe that the Ivory Coast president was assassinated today. And it's like, all right, excuse me, sorry. So if we talk about the United States and our big stick policy that has existed since Teddy Roosevelt, we really have to look at what we see coming out of these nations. And so it's no secret that whenever we want something, we seek to discredit the people in power. We did it with Muammar Gaddafi. We did it with Saddam Hussein. And so if they are not aligned with our thinking, we either eliminate them or destabilize the government so that we can come in and do what we need to do to get, at the base of it is, natural resources. Let's not be fooled by, we're bringing democracy, we're bringing innovation, we're bringing all this different stuff. Most of the time, it is about natural resources. And as many of you guys may or may not know, along those lines, Africa is at the forefront in oil, gas, precious metals that are used to make computers, most everything. So in this vein, now we see that these African leaders are starting to say, enough is enough. We want to have self-determination. Now, if I'm not mistaken, our forefathers who left England came to the United States with the idea that we want our own self-determination. We no longer want to live under the king's rule. We want to be able to, if we're going to be taxed, we want taxation with representation. But with these African nations, it's different. It's different in that these people have never had control of their country. All the superpowers, when there were superpowers, as well as China, they came into these countries with the idea that we are going to take what we need to build our economies, to build our nations, and whatever happens to these countries happens. And so I think that, as much as I decry social media and the whole internet deal, the internet has waken up a whole different thing that's going on, a whole different set of peoples, a whole different set of values, no more so than in Africa. Big Game James says we're up against the break, hoping that the young ladies arrive soon. When we come back, I'm going to continue more about this because we know that we have destabilized the Middle East because of oil. And now it looks like we're doing the same thing in Africa. I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. See you on the other end of the break. Welcome back to Talking Tom with Jon Adams. I got to say, this weather is killing me. But, I always say, it's got to rain because, after all, we live in an agrarian society where the local farmers need that rain. So I'm okay with that. Plus, the golf course needs a little rain, too. It was looking a little dry the last time I was out there. But you know what? With rain comes green grass and flowers. So we'll just have to push through it. But anyway, I want to continue on. We've been talking about the goings on in Africa as it relates to the world at large. And so there's a couple things that I talked about colonization, as well as the fact that we're seeing that leaders of these African nations are starting to say enough is enough. And so, with all of our foreign affairs policies and the things that we're doing in the United States, I'm of the opinion that we have to tread very lightly here, because this isn't going to play out the way people think it is. And I think at the centerpiece is the way that we approach these newly developing nations. The fact that we can no longer be the big stick, and that we have to have some real foreign policy decisions made where we are partnering with these African nations more than seeing them as adversarial. And if you guys have been following this, Abraham Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, he's met with Chinese leaders. He's met with leaders in the Soviet Union, and he has the backing of both of these powerful nations. And so I said it last week, we can't bury our head in the sand on these things, because we can choose to be isolated, but it's a global world now. It used to be we could be who we are and be just fine. But I think that we need to be cautious in that a lot of the natural resources that we need to maintain the lifestyle that we have come from Africa. And so we used to be able just to walk in and destabilize countries and put our military bases where we wanted and do what we needed to do to get those natural resources. Along those lines, remember just a couple weeks ago, Ukraine came to the table, and I don't know the particulars, but we struck a deal with them to have access to their natural resources. And so some people will say that was a strong arm. Some people will say that's business as usual. In my opinion, I think that we need to have a policy shift, that we need to be more partners of the world, and we need to stop the things like saying, hey, we're making the world safe for democracy, because first of all, we're a democratic republic, okay? We're not a democracy. Let's start there. So saying that we're going to export democracy, a lot of things come with that. And at the top of the list, democracy is freedom for your citizens to have some say in the way the country is run. We're seeing a shift from that, where a lot of people feel like we don't have that. So anyway, back to what's going on in Africa. So we have 7 different nations in Africa that are trying to establish the United States of Africa, where they have their own currency, where they trade with each other, where they have open borders. And I can tell you, based on everything that I've seen from publications in other nations, this is a real thing, okay? The Africa that's portrayed in the media is not the Africa that we have and that's going forward. They're developing their technologies. China and I keep saying the Soviet Union, China and Vladimir Putin, they have been working to develop these countries. And the interesting thing about that is they're not going in with a big stick. And I think China learned their lesson, because in Nigeria, in Ghana, in South Africa, Chinese nationals have been kicked out of that country because they chose to use the old method of behaviors. They were disrespectful to the citizens, disrespectful to the workers, And these African nations have said enough is enough. And to a country, they're now saying, if you want to partner with us, we welcome that. But you need to partner with us in the way that we want you to partner with us. So gone are the times of dictating to these countries how it's going to be. A number of these countries have basically cut Burkina Faso. They cut their exports of gold to France. Okay? That's significant. Burkina Faso now has control over a lot of their mineral rights and their mineral resources. And now they're determining how those get meted out. They're determining which countries get access to their rare earth metals and things like that. That's pretty significant. Now, you got to remember, we're moving to a stage where we're talking about electric cars and we're talking about going green to a certain extent. And these countries have those resources that are vital for the United States to continue to thrive. And so without those resources and without those foreign policies in place that allow us access to those resources, I don't know where we're going to go from here. I mean, I sit up here and I pontificate a lot, but I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. At some point, we're going to have the law of diminishing return take effect. We're going to be negatively impacted. Now, right now, I got to hand it as much as I don't like to. I got to hand it to the administration. It appears that we've got gas under control. There were a couple of other things that have happened just recently where I'm like, okay, all right, there are some positive coming out of this administration, okay? And I think it's important to acknowledge that as much as I lean against the administration, there are some good things that are happening. And I've said it before, anything can happen in a blip, but is this going to be sustainable? The things that we see, the positives that we're seeing, is this just a manipulated blip like we've seen with the stock market, or are we genuinely moving back into a time of economic prosperity? So with that, I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 30 days because I've said it before. I don't want Trump to fail. And I'm selfish in that because if Trump fails, we are going to be in a world of hurt. Okay? There are a number of states, we keep talking about states' rights and all that, but if our farmers are in the hurt bag, like we're starting to hear some of these farmers in Nebraska, you know, Nebraska's a red state. We've heard this over and over again that quite a few farms have gone under. The cattle industry is in the hurt bag. Well, that affects us. And I don't know about you, but I love a good steak. I love eating ribs. I love having food on the table. I hope that we're moving in the right direction. At this point, I just have to sit back and watch it. You know, I'm tired of rallying against what the inevitable is. Now, there are certainly a myriad of other things that are going on with this administration where I'm scratching my head. We talk about the writ of habeas corpus being eliminated. And without representation or the right to represent yourself, see, here's the problem. So we talk about eliminating the writ of habeas corpus, which is meaning that you have representation or the ability to face your accuser. If that goes away, it doesn't just affect the people that we want to affect, it affects everybody. When we look at the legislation and the executive orders that are coming out of the administration, believe me, it doesn't just apply to one group or the other. It applies universally. And we've seen people go on TikTok and Facebook, diehard Trump supporters, and they're like, well, I hadn't expected this to happen to me. And all you got to do is Google it, and you see people that were Trump supporters saying, hey, I didn't expect this to happen. And at the same time, I'm saying, well, how could you not? The funny thing about this guy is that he's doing everything he said he was going to do. everything he said he's going to do, and hats off to him. The problem is at what cost to the American people? So, when we look at these African nations and what's going on, what is the cost of what we're doing? Are we being good stewards in the realm of foreign policy? Because I can tell you, if China finds enough trade partners to offset what we do in terms of trade with them, they're not coming back, and they still get to dictate terms. Big Game James says we're up against the break. When I come back, we're gonna talk a little more about Africa. We're gonna talk about what's going on today and how we need to be vigilant. This is Jon Adams with Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Hey, welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I've been informed that one of my guests will not be here, but the other guest is on their way. So when she gets here, we'll have our discussion. But in the meantime, we have been talking about the goings on, our foreign policy decisions across the globe, mainly in on the continent of Africa. And I've said it before. We need to be vigilant. Now, I said I'm not going to go in on this administration because a lot of the things that I'm concerned about, they are addressing. Now, are they addressing the right way? Well, it depends on who you ask. But I do know this. If the way we're going about it does not work, we are going to be in the hurt bag as citizens of the United States. And so I've been talking about what's going on in Africa with a number of African nations that are seeking to create a United States of Africa and thereby solidifying their nations as world players. And one of the poorest nations is Burkina Faso. They went from being one of the poorest nations to now having $1 billion in their gold reserves, just built up since 2022 under the leadership of Captain Abraham Traore. And so when we look at this on a global scale, and I've said it before, as citizens of the world and people of the United States, we cannot put our head in the sand and pretend like these things aren't happening, okay? We can't continue to pretend like other people don't have access to make their countries great. Very interesting term. Very interesting phrase. People are doing it on a large scale. Nations are now waking up and they want self-determination. You know, it's my hope that this administration looks at that and says, okay, how do we become good partners? How do we become good world citizens? Now, I have to tell you, our last administration, the Biden administration, I felt like our foreign policy in a lot of areas was lacking, okay? I felt like we weren't tough where we needed to be. There were times when I thought we made too many concessions that didn't work in our favor, okay? Now, I've said it before, I'm a protectionist, and I feel like our federal government, our national government needs to protect our citizens. And I have a pretty good idea what that looks like, okay? And so I started off talking about these immigrants that were given asylum, these asylum seekers, I suppose I should call them. People say, well, what's going to happen to these citizens that we allowed to come in from South Africa? By all accounts, and if anybody knows if this is true or not, I want you to call in. But what I have read is some of these peoples are farmers. And some of these people are getting access to farms that have been foreclosed on within the United States. Now, that's something that's recent, and I've only heard it in the past couple days. If you guys have an idea on that, please call in. But how would you feel if the government says, okay, we brought these refugees in, we're going to set them up in our farming community using the land that was foreclosed on or that our farmers that were here lost? Now, some people say that those farms were lost by these American farmers because of poor business practices. Others say that the tariffs and the cost of goods are the reason that they can no longer farm or do what they needed to do. In either case, these people don't have their farms. But what's more than that, do you feel okay, would you feel okay if newly minted refugees were allowed to take these farms over? And if you do feel okay with that, please call in and give me your thought process on it. For me personally, if we granted them citizenship, I think, yeah, give them opportunity to go out and get a job like everybody else. I don't think that we should be bringing people in and handing them anything, okay? And I said this when the Biden administration was shipping people to different cities, you know, setting them up in apartments or hotels and giving them money to get started. If we've got money to do that, then we've got money to take care of our citizenry at home first. Okay? I don't believe that we should be doing what we're currently doing. Now, I floated this idea out here and I didn't get any feedback on it, but we know that we need migrant workers. We know that there are millions of illegal aliens here, okay? And we know that there are certain industries that need these people. So I'd like to float an idea out there, and I want to see what you guys think. I think that we should give these people work visas. Give them work visas, but don't allow them citizenship. I think that there should be a period of time where they work without incident. They don't have access to health care. If we're giving them jobs, they have to pay for health care like everybody else. So we get these people, we get them work visas, so now the farms, the construction companies, whatever industries that actually are using these illegals, now, first, we've created a new tax base. Second, now we know where they are. And like our society, people that don't want to work typically are going to do some nefarious activity that we will be able to track. Those are the people that we deport. But right now, what I'm saying is that we have this blanket that is only deporting a certain segment of illegal immigrants. I have yet to hear in any significant way that European illegals or Chinese illegals are being deported, that are being sent to various countries. What happened to the fairness doctrine where we apply the law equally? That's the problem that I have. So if you think I have a good idea as far as immigration goes, I want you to call in and get your thoughts on that. But again, we've been talking about U.S. foreign policy and what it looks like and what it has been, but we're heading towards what I think could be a disaster. Okay, I think it could be a disaster in a couple different ways, and at the top of the list is I hear a lot about bringing back manufacturing jobs, you know, bringing corporations back to the United States. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of people that want to have a manufacturing job. You know, we have problems filling the manual labor jobs that we have now. We're having a hard time filling those jobs. Now, if they said they were bringing back jobs where you sit behind a desk and I don't know, but jobs that make more sense for the future, then okay. But I think that, hey, we're going to bring these jobs back and it's going to be a windfall. I don't see how that happens. And so if you have an idea, please call in. I'd love to hear about it. But, you know, right now we're getting a lot of things thrown at us, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different things are in play here. And I've said it before, to what end? What is our strategy here? What are we doing now? I don't know about you, but I like transparency of government, and I could have swore that was one of the platforms that this present administration ran on, is that we're going to be transparent, and it's not happening. I'm still waiting to see what's going on with the Epstein files. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of intrigued about that, and that was a big one. You know, the Biden administration was ripped over the fact that there's not transparency of government, and there's this happening and that's happening, but it seems to me at every turn when there's supposed to be a discussion about these things, somehow they're put off, somehow they don't happen. I would like to hear you guys' thoughts on that, because it really is something when we don't have transparency of government. And there was a bill that went to the Senate, and maybe somebody could help me on this. Since when are we doing things in the Senate or the House at 11 o'clock at night? Why all this clandestine voting on issues in the middle of the night? And I think part of it is because the population's not watching. Why are some of these bills being pushed through under the cover of darkness? That's not transparency. That's not transparency. So my thing is how long do we continue to allow these things to happen? And I want to hear, what is our recourse? I know what I think our recourse is, and I said it before. If the American people ever wake up and realize that we still do run the country and that people on both sides of the aisle decide to get together and have some accountability, there can be change for the better. But at the same time, I hear a lot of people say, well, you know what, the government's too big, we can't do anything about it. Well, if we do try, they're just going to do whatever they want to do. That's not the government that we founded on. That's not that we were founded on. It's certainly not the government that we voted for. And so my question is, what are the deal breakers? What's going to be the thing that allows everybody to come together and unite and say enough is enough? Hopefully the enough is enough aha moment is going to come when we have midterm elections. Big Game James says we got to pay the bills. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Hey, welcome to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I've been talking all things foreign policy in regards to South Africa, in regard to the continent of Africa, the rise of African nations, the U.S. response, China response, Putin's response to what is amounting to a revolution of African nations. And what we're seeing is these nations say, hey, we're going to determine our own fate. We're going to determine our own future. And it's my thought that we need to be mindful of that is as the most powerful nation in the world. I think that we need to step up our foreign policy that makes sense to these burgeoning nations. That we need to make sure that we are making partners so that we are able to work with these countries to be able to have access to their natural resources so that we're able to continue to be the great nation that we are. And with everything that's happening, I don't care what you say. I don't think there's any other place I'd wear even with everything that's happening. I still happen to think that the United States is the greatest country on the earth. Now, I've said it before, long after this administration is out of office, the wheels of the United States are going to keep turning. You know, I have faith in the American people that at some point we're going to demand better on both sides of the aisle and not just continue to snipe and complain because, you know, sniping and complaining, whereas it's fun and it's nice to engage people at the same time, we're talking about the future. At the beginning of the show, I led off with the fact that at the school, it's Davies Day at the school where we're celebrating academic achievement and excellence. And along those lines, before I forget, I want to wish Dr. Cody well. He's the current principal at Davies, and he resigned here a couple weeks back. And I just wanted to say, you know, working with this man has been absolutely outstanding. I think he is a large reason that there's such a synergy at Davies High School. I mean, the guy has integrity. He allows his teachers and his faculty a certain amount of freedom to do what they think is best in the best interest of the students. And I think it's reflected in the fact that there's a synergy that exists that I haven't seen at other high schools. And so I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Second of all, we wish you well, Dr. Cody. You're going to be missed. With that, it would appear that my guests are not going to make it. I'll just talk briefly about them. They're two young ladies. They write for the Eagle, which is a student publication at Davies. And, you know, I wanted to feature them because we don't pay enough, or at least I think we don't pay enough attention to these youngsters doing wonderful things in their lives and in the community. Both of these young ladies are great people. They're great students. I wish you could hear their story from ninth grade to this being their senior year and all that they've accomplished. But, you know, their writing was so uplifting. They've done pieces on athletes. They did pieces on administrators there. And the way that they write, it was just wonderful. And I thought, this is something that the city of Fargo needs to see. As much as people whine and complain about education, you guys have to know that today our auditorium was filled with proud parents and proud administrators and proud teachers at all that these students have accomplished in the past year. We had national merit scholars. We had a young lady, oh man, I can't remember her name, but she won the Coca-Cola scholarship where there were over 100,000 different participants that were vying for this award, and she was one of 33 people. Katie Wang, that's her name. Congratulations, Katie. But she won that award, and she's out of Fargo, North Dakota. And here these kids are stepping up on the national stage and doing great things. And I think as the kids call me an old man, so as an old man, I'm just amazed at all the things that these young people are doing. And I wanted to bring that to you guys because sometimes we forget, you know, this nation, we're not building it for us, okay? We're building it for future generations, and I think sometimes that gets lost because sometimes we can forget when we were young. And it's a long time since I thought about high school, but I'm pretty sure I was a knucklehead back then. But to see these kids do great things, they're going to continue to do great stuff, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. I do want to talk about my next show because I am going to have the phenom from Shanley High School. Her name is Jaya Taylor. I want you guys to remember that name because she's doing good things in the world of basketball as well as being an outstanding student. She's going to be on the show next week. And I hope you guys tune in because she's a 7th grader and she played varsity basketball. And so I want you to hear her perspective and what it's like to basically go through that as well as meet her as a person, and hopefully her mom and dad will be here. Yeah, it's undecided yet, but she's going to be my guest next week. I can't wait. That's going to wrap up my salute to women or females. I think it's important. I don't think that we acknowledge enough what our females in the population do, and this is just my little way of saying we appreciate you. So that's coming up for next week. To wrap this up, I want to leave you guys with a couple things. First is I'm challenging people to be of service. Okay? I'm challenging anybody listening for the next month. Try to be of service and see how you feel. Now, me, I grew up living a life of service. I do a lot of community work, and I'm certainly not tooting my horn, but I'm saying for me, these are the things that help me feel good about who I am every day. Okay? And I say it all the time. Money won't do it. Things won't do it. But let's be of service to one another. That's the first thing. The second thing is slow down. Every time I talk to people, it seems like there's always this rush to do stuff. Remember to slow down and enjoy life. Enjoy your family. I lost my sister a year ago, and it's still very difficult. I feel like I didn't have enough time, and she was 65. And it's like, everybody, let's not take this life for granted. Let's enjoy the community in which we live. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It was kind of a rant day, but, you know, these are topics. I hope there was a subject matter that you look at and that you investigate. And with that, I want you guys to have a great week. And as always, stay black.